Hey guys, and welcome back to part 2 of my look at the latest offering by the DIY Watch Club. Of course, I am talking about their NH34 powered GMT, which I assembled and then tested inside of Herman in part 1. Of course, I haven't run through the specifications and basically reviewed the watch that you end up with if you decide you want to have a go at building this GMT watch by the DIY Watch Club. It would probably be good to run through, well, exactly what you're going to end up with. So in this video, I'm going to head over to the Lightbox, run through all the facts, figures, stats, and specifications, show you this watch in a little bit more detail now that it's been made, and then we can decide whether or not you end up with a good value for money watch at the end of your build. So yes, stick around. Well, I think the first thing we need to do is take a look at the NH34 GMT movement on the Timegrapher, see how it's performing. And yeah, I've got to say, I'm pretty pleased with this one. Almost perfect accuracy. This is, of course, only on the Timegrapher, but still, it's running very, very nicely. Good amplitude. The beat error is on the cusp. It's okay, not fantastic. That can be easily corrected. I'm not so sure I'm going to bother, but yeah, overall, the movement's running very, very nicely. Right, and here it is then, our first opportunity to have a proper good look at the GMT watch that I've ended up with after the build. I have done one thing since I finished building this watch. I removed the movement to access the underside of the crystal because there was a speck of dust that was driving me nuts. So yeah, I took the movement out, removed that speck, put it all back together, and yeah, all seems absolutely fine. And what do you think of how it looks, guys? Let me know in the comments section. It's quite a chunky GMT. They have given it 200 meters of water resistance and a display case back, and that crystal, in order to achieve that 200 meter water resistance rating, needs to be fairly substantial. So yeah, that is going to add some thickness to the case. I'll give you the dimensions in a moment, but yeah, I mean, it is just a fairly good looking, well proportioned, sort of chunky, all stainless steel, sporty GMT, and they have named it the Batman for obvious reasons. It has the black blue ceramic bezel insert with a color matching GMT hand. So yeah, a good looking watch. We're going to check out the Lume in a minute, all the dimensions. I'll run through some of the specifications, but yeah, let me know what you think in the comments section with the design that they've created. I do think the stainless steel finishing on the case is actually very nice. There's a beautiful high polished chamfered edge that goes from a sort of thinner section, widens out to the end of the lug, and the transition between brushing and polishing is actually very, very good. The brushing on the case also seems very, very nice. The overall fit and finish and quality feel of the case and the bezel and the crown action is actually very nice. Feels really good. I have to say the bracelet doesn't feel quite as good. It doesn't feel poor quality. You do have solid end links and solid links and screw pins, double-ended quick release spring bars, look, but it just, I don't know, it's difficult to explain. There's a bit of jangle, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. Yeah, I think it's just that the case feels like a really good quality case, and the bezel action is actually quite nice. Let's have a little fiddle. It's got a very sort of Seiko-esque feel to it. Really smooth and greasy, a sort of double click thing going on. Even resistance all the way around. The resistance is actually quite high, but the grip is fantastic. The finishing on the outside of the bezel, even though it's polished, and sometimes that softens the finish to the outside of the bezel and can make it difficult to turn. It hasn't done on this occasion. Yeah, it is a satisfying bezel action. The clicks perhaps not quite as crisp and loud as I like, but yeah, it's okay. And let's check out the alignment after I aligned it up. Oh, I think it might actually be fractionally off still. I'll have to work on that, maybe run it under the hot tap and just try and soften up that double-sided adhesive tape and just work it round. But yeah, I was close. Oh, it is actually harder than it looks, you know. Anyway, let's finish up looking at the bracelet. A fully brushed bracelet. Even the sides of the links are brushed. Quite substantial links as well. Quite wide. Again, I'll give you the dimensions in a moment. Quite some chunky links as well, actually, aren't they? So solid end links, solid links, screw pins. The clasp, oh, this is a bit of a shame. You do have a fairly cheap looking pressed clasp. It's not the end of the world. Double pushers and a safety latch signed, look. and a few micro adjusts. But yeah, the watch does feel like a quality watch until you see that clasp, unfortunately. Now, there are some specifications on the screw down case back, and the crown is also a screw down crown with the DIY Watch Club D on it. And actually, the crown action is really, really nice. It feels super slick and greasy, good resistance when you push it back in to wind it up, and it catches every single time. So yeah, that adds to the quality feel of the watch, and I quite like the crown guards. Actually, they're a little bit angular, and I like the side profile of the case in general. Actually, that sort of steep downturn of the lugs. You do have male end links, but again, they turn down quite abruptly, don't they? So it's going to make this fairly chunky, large watch actually quite wearable for people with average or smaller than average wrists. Right, we're going to test the Lume, but I suspect it will be pretty good. The Lume on the dive watch that I made from the DIY Watch Club quite a while ago was also very, very good. So yeah, let's give it a quick boost with the Lume torch, let it run down for 5 minutes, and have a little look at before and after. Right, I think that's been about 5 minutes, and yes, you would expect the Lume to fade a little bit, especially after it's been charged by the UV Lume torch, but yeah, it still looks pretty good, doesn't it? So yeah, I'm happy with that. And 3 colours as well, blue, green, and that sort of interesting purpley blue colour on the tip of the GMT hand. Cool. Right, let's give you some dimensions. The diameter is 41.5. Thickness, including the single domed sapphire crystal, is 14.5 millimeters. Case length is 47.5. Lug width is 22. 2 millimeters of taper on the bracelet, and back up to 21.5 at the clasp. Set up for my roughly average 7.25 inch-ish wrist, it now weighs 164 grams. Here's confirmation then that the crystal is sapphire crystal, and there is a subtle blue AR coating. If I get the watch at the right angle, where is it? Yep, there it is on the right hand side. Look, you can see a blue hue to the reflection. It's not that obvious, and it sort of helps, but yeah, it is there. Now, I think people are going to look at this watch one of two ways. I think some people will look at it and say, well, there are some weak specifications, and you're being asked prior to the discount to pay over £400 for the privilege of having all the components and having to make this watch yourself. And there are much cheaper NH34 powered GMT watches currently available. But then on the other hand, I think some people will look at it and say, well, actually, you end up with a fairly well-spec'd, good-looking NH34 powered GMT watch. Yes, you have to assemble it yourself, but some people will enjoy that experience. The DIY Watch Club have gone to the effort of packaging up all the parts individually and basically making the videos to help support you, putting extra hands in, that sort of stuff, thinking about all the tools that you'll need to make each individual watch. And then those people will also look at the discounted price and say, well, actually, it represents good value for money when you compare it to some micro brand watches that are being powered by the NH34 GMT movement. Now, I think I'm going to be one of those people that looks at it and says, well, I respect what they're doing, and I actually think it's good value for money. Just over £300 for a fairly well-spec'd NH34 powered GMT watch, which you get to put together yourself. And as long as you've got a little bit of confidence and you're capable and you've got a fairly steady hand, I think you'll end up with a lovely watch. So yeah, that's my opinion. Let me know in the comment section what you think of this watch and what the DIY Watch Club are offering.